Welcome to Whistle Where You Work. I'm Mark Cohen, Executive Director of the Government Accountability Project. Even George Orwell never thought of this. Mandatory electronic scanning of every person, their entire person, before they may board a plane. It's called whole body image scanning, and it's not science fiction. By the end of next year, 2 out of 3 U.S.-based airline passengers may be whole body imaged, purportedly to protect them against suicide bombers. But critics warn whole body imaging is more of a threat to our liberties and rights than it is to a terrorist bent on mayhem. With us to discuss this quickly spreading technology are Lily Coney, Associate Director of EPIC, the Electronic Privacy Information Center, and Corey Saylor, Legislative Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE. Welcome to Whistle Where You Work.
Thanks for having us.
Lily, let's start with you. Describe for us the technology involved in whole body imaging.
They use a form of X-ray that's a lower energy X-ray than you would experience if you were at the doctor and they were trying to see if you had a broken bone or take X-rays of teeth. This X-ray actually penetrates the outer layer of clothing, but it does not penetrate the skin. So when the X-ray returns, at least the spectrum returns to the device, it replicates an exact image of what's underneath the individual's clothing. So it reproduces basically a nude image of the person who is subjected to the X-ray.
And how is this different than other imaging that gets done of us, that we already can capture people's voices, their faces, their eyes, that all are create identities that can be recorded and put into databases? Why is this different?
All information about ourselves, including our voice, our name, our face, our signatures, everything that's related to us as individuals is personally identifiable information. You are correct. There are things like surveillance cameras out there. There are audible announcements when you call in to get service telling you this recording may be, this telephone conversation may be recorded. What's different about whole body imaging is, one, it introduces another type of collection of personal information. That collection is completely outside of any rights that are provided to individuals regarding how that information might or might not be used. This is not like getting an X-ray in the doctor's office, which would be considered protected under health information privacy regulations. This information being collected in the context of an airport is not being done voluntarily. You're not subjecting to this voluntarily. It also will be directly associated with you because of the boarding pass information you have to present and the ID you have to present right at the point of entering the security checkpoint, so that your identification, your identity can be uniquely linked to that image. Unlike when you're walking down the street, they may capture images of individuals walking down the sidewalk. The quality of the video isn't that great, and it's hard to associate a particular person with a name or identity because it's not a part of the collection process. And right now, facial recognition just isn't that good.
All right, well, we scan our luggage when we go to airports, and in order to see what's in there, to make sure that nothing dangerous is being loaded onto the plane. We're scanning people now. Doesn't that make sense in order to find out if they're carrying something that's dangerous? Is your concern that we're scanning the people or that we're creating a record out of it that's permanent?
There are two issues.
Mm-hmm.
One, the agency is engaging in deployment of technology that hasn't been fully vetted. They haven't had a complete Administrative Procedure Act policy rulemaking process that would allow for the public to comment and for them to get external expertise into the decision-making process that may help evaluate whether this particular approach will in fact accomplish the outcome desired. Now, EPIC, along with other privacy and civil liberties advocacy organizations, want to have safe travel, and we don't want to see successful events happen where terrorists are trying to threaten travel or threaten individuals or anything of that nature. It actually hurts civil liberties and privacy if these individuals are successful. But what we do need to do is make sure that when government makes decisions, they are the best decisions they could make, taking into consideration the best known knowledge about the deployment of certain types of technologies. There is a question about the effectiveness of this technology regarding the types of explosives, a powder-based explosive in the case of the December 25th attempted attack last year, whether the range of the spectrum that is generated to produce the whole body imaging would have in fact detected that explosive material or not. The second issue is terrorists are innovative and they adjust, they adapt. So there are other ways that they can hide explosive materials that would not be visible in a whole body imaging application. So in knowing that those are real possibilities and there are known attempts to use explosives that are not detectable by these devices or reported not to be detectable by these devices, and there's no independent evaluation regarding this very key issue, we do want to have more transparency and openness and evaluation and looking at alternative ways to accomplish some of those ends, because there are automated systems that don't reveal the full nude image of an individual that would allow evaluation of anomalies, underclothing, that would not require the capturing of a nude image of an individual to be reviewed by another stranger that's in a remote location at the airport. There are other things that we can do that we should pursue that may give us the same outcome without posing the same privacy problems.
Corey, your organization is concerned about this issue of providing this full body image, in particular of people's genitalia, I suppose. There's a modesty issue in your community?
Certainly, and let me just say out front, we share all of the concerns of EPIC, Lily's organization, but where we sort of add on to that a little bit, the Islamic faith teaches us to be modest in our dress. It's not that we should be appearing in front of men we don't know, women we don't know very well naked. So the idea of going through one of these scanners and having some male or female that you don't know looking at your naked person is not something that's in line with our religious faith. And that position has already been echoed by the Catholic Church and Agudath Israel, forgive me, I'm probably butchering the Hebrew name, but an Orthodox Jewish group. So this is an issue that, it turns out, will unite the various faiths who are all concerned about modesty and not revealing your body to people outside of your family, not your spouse.
And so this imaging process does that, but TSA says, well, if you are offended by this type of search, we will offer you other alternatives. You don't have to do this. Isn't that adequate?
That is correct, but if you look the way it's being implemented, a lot of the reports we get from people concerned about this are saying, I didn't know what the machine was before I went through it. There was no sign or no one told me I had an alternative. And we also just last week got a case where the person was told, well, we don't have somebody here to give you a pat down, and therefore you have to go through the machine. So this individual was left, either I go through the machine or I miss my flight.
So you did say before that you agree with all the other points that Lily was raising, but I'm wondering, let's say that there were a big sign in front of this machine saying, this machine is about to scan your entire body. If you object to this and you would prefer some other method of being searched before you enter this plane, please tell so-and-so who's standing 3 feet from you. Would that satisfy your concerns?
That would likely satisfy the religious part of my concern. Now, the broader concern is this technology actually effective? Mm-hmm. We want to be safe when we're flying. I don't want to feel safe. So I want technologies that are going to actually do the job. And the Government Accountability Office has said this full body imaging technology may not have caught, as Lily pointed out, the December 25th bomber. So it's interesting to me, why are we having this push to suddenly install all of this machinery if it would not have caught the guy?
Well, good question. What do you think the answer to that is?
In Washington, D.C., that can usually be tied back to some lobbyist has a good idea about how to make some money for their company, because I really do doubt that this technology, all you have to do is look at prisons and see how innovative prisoners have been in sneaking around all kinds of different ideas. That's the same kind of thing the extremists are working on. So they're going to see the deployment of these machines that may not have even caught something we already are looking for, and they're just going to fairly quickly find ways around it.
I'm wondering if some people are at home are saying, well, okay, so there's nothing we can do about anything, therefore, or therefore we should just layer on one technology on top of another and different methods of searching so that we've covered all of the different variables. It is a tough question. I'm wondering, Lily, you've heard, I know you also have concerns about the modesty issue, but I understand EPIC's concern is more about the recordation, the maintenance of a permanent database that this screening portends. TSA says they're not doing that they're just looking at it just like baggage, and you get through there and the image gets erased. Is that what's happening? And if that were happening, would you be satisfied?
Well, EPIC has several tools in its arsenal, and one of them is the Freedom of Information Act, which we use very well to get access to information that would otherwise not come to public light. We've pursued aggressively a FOIA documents from TSA and from the Department of Homeland Security on the technical specifications regarding the technology, which we obtained, along with hundreds of complaints, over 600 complaints that we've gone through so far from passengers with some of the same issues that Corey has raised about either not knowing about what was happening to them or not being informed of alternative. The document regarding these technical specification, what the Transportation Security Administration told vendors it wanted, included the ability to use a USB key, which is basically a thumb drive. It's something you can fit in the palm of your hand, and right now you can get several gigabytes of data on one of these drives. They also wanted to make sure it was enabled to record images that could be retained and stored on the device. They also required that Ethernet connectivity be provided, which means that data can be shipped around. Now, whether that data stays between the device and going to this person who's viewing it, or whether that data is shipped beyond into other areas of the airport or beyond, is something that is possible if you include that technology. When TSA was asked by the House Committee on Homeland Security about the technology and its capacity for recording images, it did acknowledge that in fact that the devices could in fact record images and store images. It stated that it would be for testing and training purposes, but that the feature that is enabled for storing images could be disabled, but in fact it also could be re-enabled, that there were no barriers or controls for them not being able to re-enable those that capacity and retain those images. There's one other thing I'd like to raise is there are airports and air travel environments that require high security because of very active terrorism environments. Israel's Ben Gurion Airport has no incidents, but also have to deal with a great number of potential incidents by screening individuals. They are not deploying these systems.
Well, let me ask you a question in that regard. They're not screening. What
but they're not deploying whole body images screening.
Yeah.
They use methods regarding human factors and evaluating individuals and things that should be taken into consideration when we're looking at how to
let me
improve.
tell you that I once passed through that airport and they said to me, they looked at my passport, saw my last name, concluded I was Jewish and figured I wasn't a safety risk.
Right.
So it can cut both ways,
Right.
I think.
And
but
I
what
agree.
they do is all of their airplanes have double holds, and so there are two doors, so nobody can cross two doors to get to. They'd be trapped between the two doors if they tried to get in the cockpit and try to weaponize the plane. And I'm just wondering if that wouldn't be the solution to the current concerns that we have based upon 9/11. It isn't that somebody's going to hijack a plane and fly you to Algeria or Cuba these days. It's that they're going to take over the plane and turn it into a weapon and bomb a building with it.
Right. The way they think that security is approached, and Bruce Schneier is a wonderful person to talk with about this, and I would highly recommend him being a guest on your show. But he wrote a book about post 9/11 security, and he talked about something called security theater, which is what Corey referenced.
Absolutely.
Looking like they're doing something versus I'm really being made more secure is very important. There are two lessons that came out of 9/11. One, they reinforced cockpit doors on planes. Two, passengers realized they are going to have to be the line of defense if every other security measure fails, and they acted on December 25th, and they've acted in post 9/11 situations when air incidents occurred. It's not the way things ought to be, but it is something that we need to be sure to understand, that when we look at security, we need to have a conversation that encompasses a wide range of approaches. Things that are done in some contexts that the Israelis may be doing that might be adaptable for our air travel industry and the security measures that we're trying to incorporate. Things that we need to understand that are outside the expertise of maybe the agencies, but maybe out there in academic research or out there in various areas of expertise that could be brought to bear to help the agency in developing more secure methods of securing air travel. And this is not just going to be about airports. The DHS TSA responsibility is for all forms of transportation. So if whole body imaging is in airports, expect that there may be a point where train stations might have this technology being deployed, or it may be because subways would be considered a form of mass transit, that being an area where these technologies might be deployed. It's important to really get this right now.
Well, let me ask you this, because TSA is going to respond, that what this whole body imaging offers is the opportunity to return to those halcyon days of non-hassled travel, that you just pass through this and basically you're done. You don't have to take off your shoes anymore. You have to undress for guards. You don't have to go into a closed room with somebody and get patted down. It returns to a hassle-free day of travel. Having just traveled cross country, anybody who does that can appreciate the idea, the sales pitch of a non-hassle air travel. How do you respond to that?
Well, we all, I think, would like to be able to travel non-hassle, and if you really want to do it today, go ride a train. But there's 2 points. One, we do have to address the modesty concerns. And the majority of the population in the United States believes in some kind of a God. And those that practice Christian, Jewish, Muslim, and other faiths all believe in this modesty thing. So that should not have to be sacrificed when you walk into an airport. The second part is they do have to clearly prove that these machines will work to secure us when we're getting on an airplane, and that people are fully aware of their rights and responsibilities as they're going through the checkpoint. So I would go back to this woman who, she would have been happy to go and get a pat down, but they told her, well, we don't have anybody of your sex to do the pat down. One alternative that we're exploring is they can modify the image that these machines produce to just be essentially a chalk outline. So, sorry to use this as the example, but you see it all the time in murder mysteries, the outline of the human body. So you can get that in something that just might show inanimate objects on their body. That, again, that may deal with the modesty concerns. But again, more rigorous testing, something that shows us that this really works. Let me use one final example.
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say one final example. We had this thing where people were going to get on an airplane, come over and use liquids to blow up the airplanes midair. So we all lost the ability to take liquids on airplanes.
Okay.
If you watch the security screeners now, what they're doing when they take their liquid from you is essentially throwing it over their shoulder into a trash can that sits there all day. And that kind of gives me the sense that they're not really concerned about what's in the bottle, because if you really thought it was a threat, would you be tossing it over your shoulder into a trash can that will be sitting next to you all day? And frankly, if they take my water bottle away from me, I can just go back out of security, go get whatever it is I want, and try it again and try it again and try it again, because they're not testing me to see if I'm bringing through something that's dangerous.
Yeah, it sometimes seems that they're testing to see how much we can take more than anything else. I just want to finish up with this. EPIC's involved in a campaign and a coalition to try to do something about
Yes.
this. You got 30 seconds to tell us what that is.
We want to make sure there is at least a 90-day comment period on the deployment of these systems. We want privacy policy that is written in stone, not at the discretion of the agency where it can change at its mind at any time and change the settings and retain images and use them however they feel they want to or need to use them. The third thing is looking at technology that will get us to where we need to be on security without forgetting the other things that you have to do, which is training of personnel, hiring people with the right skill sets to do the type of work that needs to be done regarding security, and to also appreciate that human dignity is a very important aspect of our rights as human beings, and that this is not something to be taken lightly. There was an incident at an airport during a testing period with TSA employees where a supervisor made a very insensitive comment about a fellow subordinate, and the reaction of that subordinate resulted in him being arrested.
And what you're referring to is that this subordinate's image was captured,
Right.
and there was a reference to the size of his genitalia.
Exactly. Trying to be delicate because it was a very, just reading about it, I felt very bad for everyone who was involved. But it demonstrated the weakness of having human beings view others without their clothing on. And if they're in a room somewhere laughing or chuckling or recounting things that they've seen at the lunch table or at home over beers with their friends, it's still offensive to human dignity. This is not a place we want to go. This type of architecture is used in prisons. This is not the kind of thing you want to expose the general public to. We can do better than this.
Many thanks to Lily Coney of EPIC and Corey Saylor of CARE for joining us to discuss this new tool to counter terrorism that offers a full frontal snapshot of the state of snooping in America today. We'll be back in a minute.
I'm not going to go into great detail for why we need to do this. You all understand more than anybody that in order to make sure that we protect taxpayers, that we protect consumers, that we in fact protect the fundamentals of our democracy and hold our government accountable, we need to make sure that people who come forward to tell the truth are not punished. That should be a very basic tenet of what it means to be a strong democracy and to make sure our democracy works for people. So that's why in the enhanced whistleblower protection legislation, we have a number of provisions. Number one, to ensure that most civilians, certainly Title V civilians in the workforce, get jury trials, so they have an opportunity to have the facts heard by a jury of their peers. We think that's absolutely essential. And also that we will, for the first time, make sure that we have protections for those who are in the national security arena. There's no reason, as all of the people in this room understand, to exclude whistleblowers in the national security arena. That truth-telling is just as important, sometimes more important, but certainly just as important as those who come forward in the non-security area. And it's important for the national security of our country that those individuals be protected when they come forward. So we are very close, I believe. We have passed this legislation in the House, as you know. We passed it twice, most recently as an amendment to the Economic Recovery and Reinvestment Act. We thought that was a very appropriate vehicle for it because in a piece of legislation where we were investing over $750 billion of taxpayer dollars into the economy, we thought we should at the same time allow people who identify waste, fraud, or abuse in that process to have full protections, full whistleblower protections. Unfortunately, that did not survive the conference on that piece of legislation or survive the final passage on that legislation. But the good news is that since then, the Senate committee has acted, and we hope the Senate will move forward. We're exploring all different vehicles for trying to get this passed as soon as possible, including we are looking at the current defense authorization bill as one possibility. We hope that will work. If it doesn't, we will keep trying other alternatives as we go. I do also want to say a word about the White House. I understand Norm Eisen was here a little earlier, and I want to thank the White House and the administration for working very closely with the Congress on this issue. As all of you know, previous administrations have been very hostile toward enhancing whistleblower protection. They've used every trick in the book to try and block this effort, and obviously they've been successful in the past at blocking this effort, previous administrations. This administration has taken a very different attitude toward this effort, much more open to it, provided constructive input, and I think with their help, we will ensure that we get something through the House that the President will sign, and something that does greatly strengthen whistleblower protections. So I want to thank my colleagues in the House who've been working on this as well. It's been a bipartisan effort with Todd Platts, Bruce Braley, Henry Waxman, somebody who's been involved in this effort for a long period of time as well. And as the vote showed when we brought this up during the House action on the recovery bill, there are substantial bipartisan majorities for getting this done.